Welcome to Brave Conversations, where real stories lead to brave moves. I'm Barbie Armenta, storyteller, speaker, realtor, and guide for women navigating midlife transitions. If you're standing at a crossroads, wondering what's next, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Brave Conversations. In 2018, my middle son got married. 2 weeks later, my stepdaughter got married. And then in early 2019, my oldest son got married. And then in May of 2019, my youngest son, Dawson, graduated from high school, packed a bag, and left the country to do missions with YWAM, Youth with a Mission, for 6 months in Australia. I want you to sit with that for a second. 3 weddings, a graduation, and 1 son on the other side of the world, all in less than 12 months. This mama had a lot of feelings. If you've been following this story from the beginning, you know that every home that I have lived in has held a season. And the Flower Mound homes, both of them, held the biggest, most beautiful, most complicated seasons of them all. The seasons of becoming a family. Richard and I got married and we moved into the first Flower Mound house together. Just 1 year later, the homeowner decided to sell. So we moved to a second house in Flower Mound on a quiet cul-de-sac that became the backdrop for the years of becoming. And those years were full. I'm talking about big family dinners around the table, no phones, just laughter and storytelling. That's actually how I would describe how our blended family grew. Not in a single dramatic moment, but around a table, meal by meal, story by story, season by season. Richard's daughter was graduating from college to become a nurse. The boys graduating high school, church camps, basketball games, track meets, art exhibits, job layoffs, and God's provision. Me becoming a life coach and launching the Brave Gathering events. Our kids were growing up and figuring out who they were, and honestly, so were we. And then slowly, well, not that slowly, they all left. That's what kids are supposed to do. I know that, I believe that, and I still wasn't ready for it. Because there's a particular kind of quiet that settles into a house when the people who filled it are gone. You walk past a bedroom and it's too still. You make dinner and there's too much food. You sit at the table, that beautiful big table that held so many stories, and it echoes just a little bit. This is the empty nest season that so many of us face. And if you're a Gen X woman, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because it doesn't just happen in isolation. It happens at the same time that our parents are aging, at the same time our careers are shifting, and at the same time we're looking for the next 20 years and asking, okay, what's next? That is the question. When Richard and I were sitting right in the middle of it, he felt strongly that it was time to give our notice on our lease. We knew that we were ready to buy, we just didn't know where. No school districts to worry about for the first time in over 2 decades. No carpool routes to consider. No Saturdays at a ball field for the first time. The location was entirely up to us. And that freedom was both exhilarating and paralyzing. We explored everything. Existing home, new construction, old home renovation, Keller, Grapevine, Fort Worth. We drove around neighborhoods, we talked, we prayed. We kept coming back to the same answer. A fixer-upper in Fort Worth, something with character, something with history, something worth restoring. The problem? We couldn't find one. With our lease ending and no house in sight, God opened a door we had not even knocked on. My sister, she lived in a 4-bedroom condo in Arlington. She had lost her husband the year before. Her daughter was fighting cancer, and she was in a hard season, and she had room. So we moved in with her. I want to say that plainly because I think there's something important here. Sometimes the brave move isn't the one you planned. Sometimes it's the one that lands in front of you and says, this is where you're needed. We were looking for a house, but we were also needed in a family, and God knew that before we did. So we prayed for us, for her, for a house, for healing, for clarity, and for comfort, and we just kept searching. There was a day when Richard and I decided to just drive. Not search online, though I was spending hours a day doing that, but just drive through Fort Worth, through neighborhoods. We pulled over at one point and we sat in the car and we just prayed over the community around us, the people, the businesses, the streets, just asking God to show us what he had. And then we just kept driving. And that's where we saw it. The house I had not seen online. It was just sitting there on a street in Fort Worth. It was 80 years old, had 3 bedrooms, But here's what really caught my attention. It had a big kitchen and a big dining room. And for a woman whose family grew around a table, that was everything. So we walked through it and I could already see what it could be. Not what it was, it needed work, but what it could be. And in the back, a finished guest house. I looked at Richard and we both knew. My sister moved in to the back house, and little did we know what was ahead. Because right before we moved in, my sister and I lost our dad to cancer. And then 3 months after we moved in, COVID hit and the whole world shut down. And there we were, all of us together. My sister not alone in her grief, me not alone in mine, stuck at home, yes, but together. God knew, he always knows. And Dawson, my youngest, he came home from Australia the day after we moved in. The day after. God is always on time, not early, not late, but right on time. But 1 year after moving in, we did do the renovation. And I have to tell you, this was a dream. I love Chip and Joanna Gaines, and if you know me, you know this about me. The idea of taking something old and restoring it to its best self, that has always spoken to me. It's just something deep inside of me. And I finally got my fixer-upper. My middle son's in-laws, they do construction and design, so I had the most wonderful team. We made plans that felt true to the home's craftsman roots, and we honored the history while making it ours. And then I got COVID right before construction started, and I spent 5 days in bed watching home improvement shows. So you could say I was very prepared when we got started. During that time, I found a photo online of a woman who had an incredible brass vent hood in her kitchen. She had found it on eBay and had moved it with her twice. I searched everywhere and could not find anything like it. But Richard reminded me we had a friend that does metalwork, and he made us one from scratch, custom brass, and it is the star of the show. But here's my favorite part of the renovation. When we started pulling things apart, taking down the popcorn ceilings and sheetrock, underneath, we found gorgeous hardwood ceilings and shiplap walls and wallpaper that was original to the home. It was 80 years old, but we framed a piece of it and put it in our house because this home had a story before we got here, and we wanted to honor that. This house, it holds more than I can count. Family dinners, birthday parties, a gender reveal, photo shoots, starting businesses, another wedding, grandkids arriving, Cousin's Day when we gather all the littles together, prayers, tears. I also lost my mom in this house, and I got my real estate license in this house. I started Brave Conversations, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, sitting in this 80-year-old house with the brass vent hood and the original shiplap and the big dining room table, I fully understood something. All of these moves, all 9 of them, were not just my story, they were my education. Every transition I navigated, every house I chose, every box I packed, every season I survived, it was all preparing me for this. To sit across from a woman who is standing in the middle of a transition she didn't ask for, a divorce, an empty nest, a remarriage, a loss, and say, I know this road, I've walked it, and I can walk it with you. The moves and transitions I've lived through, the ones that felt like setbacks, the ones that broke my heart, the ones that made me question everything, they're actually my superpower. Not despite the hard things, but because of them. I'm not called to real estate as usual. I'm called to use real estate as a doorway into honest conversations about identity, transition, and what's next. To bring my coaching, my experience, and my faith into a process that so many women face alone. Because here's what I know after 9 moves and many major life transitions. You can build a beautiful life through the hardest chapters. You can lose things you love and still find abundance ahead. You can pack a box with a broken heart and unpack it in a place that becomes home. And you don't have to do any of it alone. We are a family of 17 now and growing. That big dining room table, the one I chose that I wanted space for people, not just rooms for square footage, is full. Grandkids at the table now, cousins stay in the backyard, generations gathered in a house that was already 80 years old when we got here. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever built, not with my hands, but with my life. Every brave move, every hard season, every home that held me until I was ready for the next one, it was all leading here. So if you're listening today and you're in the middle of something hard, a marriage that's ending, a nest that's emptying, a house that's no longer fits who you're becoming, a season you didn't ask for and can't yet see the end of, I want you to hear this. Your hard seasons are not your failure. They're your formation. The brave move you make, even when you're terrified, even when you're grieving, even when you can't see the other side, those moves are writing your story that will one day become your superpower too. So keep going, keep trusting, keep making brave moves. Your table is being set, your people are coming, your next chapter is not finished. So go and be brave.
Brave conversation.